Hey everybody, my name is Holly Smith Gonzalez. I was a middle school band director for 16 years. The last 12 years I've been a fundraising consultant, but I'm still in the music world. My kids are in band, I clinic, teach lessons, and I'm excited to talk to y'all tonight about the longevity of being a band director.
Hi, I'm Richard Gonzalez, and I've been teaching for 32 years, all middle school, and I'm excited to share some information with you all that might help you figure out a way to stay in this business for a long time. So I think that one of the key components for teachers that do this for more than the average, which is about 7 years, as at least that's how it's going in education right now. I think maybe band directors last a little longer because it's what we do. It's a passion. It's a special thing. But first and foremost, I think you have to keep making sure that you make band fun. That the kids want to be in band because number one, they want to be with you. They want to be taught by you, and number two, they're going into a place where they feel safe, where you make the band hall their second home, and sometimes that can be a little crazy when they're there and you're trying to do sectionals and things like that. But you just want to make sure that they have some ownership to the room, that they take care of the room, and that they know they're always welcome there. And if you create that environment, number one, you're making it fun for them. It's about music, and also for them mostly, it's about making friends. If we discovered anything over this past spring, when we were doing our online teaching, we would give them questions and ask them how they were doing. And 95% of them just said they missed their friends and missed being with their friends. You find out that that's what a lot of them are there for. And band offers that in a real special way. I think it's super important that you keep a healthy balance between having a competitive band and not just teaching for the competition, but keeping a balance between that and teaching music for the sake of music, for the love of music. And if you can maintain that balance, number one, you'll have a healthier band program, you'll have happier kids, and you'll be happier because you won't be putting so much pressure on yourself the entire time. And that's an individual thing. I think that we're all pretty competitive people to begin with. Being in band, you have to fight for your first chair, and so we're just naturally competitive people. But I think it's important to keep that balance and remember that we fell in love with music for some reason, and we want our kids to go through our programs also fall in love with music, not necessarily because they were going to become a band director or anything like that, but just to have that connection with music and know what music does for them. Some of the things that you establish in your program are vital to your program being successful for your program. Having kids in it. We're going to talk about retention and all those kinds of things, but I think it's important to start off with creating traditions. It's important that the kids look up to the older kids. It's important that the sixth graders hear the eighth graders, and you're going to find yourself maybe repeating a song or two every couple of years because it becomes tradition to play that song because the sixth graders heard the eighth graders play it, and those kind of traditions go a long way in developing a culture that they look forward to, and they're striving for something because they've heard it happen, and they want the same thing to happen to them as they get to 7th and 8th grade. So it's it can be a pop song, a pop arrangement. It's usually some sort of John Williams music for us, and the sixth graders have their own little traditions by the end of the year when we put them together as a band, and they know that they're going to play Pepper Out of Rock, or they know that they're going to play the 1812 Overture out of the book, or they're going to play the theme from Forrest Gump. There's just these things that, I've created in my program over the years that just keeps them going and keeps them looking forward to what they get to do. I think, there's real simple things like decorating the lockers prior to competition, prior to district competition, prior to solo and ensemble contests. Things that make them feel special and gives them that feeling of unity. Another key factor, another fun part of making band fun is the social events. You have to plan in advance and make sure that you're doing something that the kids get to do without their instruments in their hands or faces. That they're going to a skating party or ice skating, or they're going to go do the putt-putt. We do that every year. And it's always cool to see them, in a different environment anyway. And then you see them interacting with their friends a little differently. But those are the things that they will actually probably remember more than anything else. Those events, those special things, like playing at a Spurs game. We've done that for many years. And then just the non-music things, like I said, the roller skating and ice skating. Like I said, they're going to remember their trips. They're going to remember some favorite songs, and mostly they're going to remember the friends they made in their middle school years. For me, at least, and it continues in high school. Whether you're doing middle school or high school, we've seen it in our own girls going through the Johnson Band program. They have friends for life, and they have experiences that are much more special than what we can do in middle school, because we're not allowed overnight trips and things like that. But once they get to that older age, they get to do things that are even more fun and more memorable. And so I think those are some key things to think about as you're getting your program going the way you want it. And if it's not your program and you're working with somebody else, it's important that you stay on the same page with them, but it's also important to bring in some of these ideas. I'm not necessarily real strong on the social activities, but I've had great assistants, and they've always found a way to make me do things that I don't necessarily like to do.
Well, and hearing you talk about traditions, something that I just thought of just now as we were trying to plan for this session, after UIL, if the band, no matter how they did, but a parent would always bring a cake for us to celebrate that, they had success with UIL, then that's always something that they're going to remember too. Talking about recruitment, obviously that's huge in building your program, and recruitment and retention were always really important to me when I was teaching, because I knew that if I kept my numbers, that affected a lot of things. I could have more of a budget, more quality of a band, and we just wanted to be the best that we could be. So go visit your elementary schools and make that connection with the elementary students, and you do that by starting with making a relationship with a music teacher at the elementaries. I did several things when I was teaching to recruit. My favorite would be to take all the primary instruments. Sorry, I never took saxophone or percussion, but I took all the other instruments and I would play each instrument, and it would be something that would relate to that instrument. For example, trombone would be the Darth Vader theme. Flute was always Over the Rainbow. Of course, you might want to update it now. There's a whole bunch of other new things that kids can relate to, but something that's going to stick into their head. And you want to romance every instrument. You want to make the tuba seem popular. You want to make every instrument something that some kids can go, wow, that's really cool. I want to learn how to do that.
Remember when you played the tuba and you were pregnant?
9 months pregnant, and I had the tuba sat on my belly. I don't even remember what song I played that year, but I was huffing it out for sure.
Yeah.
And you helped me that year because
Yeah,
I was 9 months pregnant. There was a couple of years that I would take, of course we had several feeders for elementaries, and I would take the 6th graders from that particular feeder and they would play. And so those 5th graders that knew them from the year before would go, wow, they can play that already, and they didn't know anything about how to play an instrument, because a lot of times they're just scared. They think that, I don't know how to play an instrument. Well, that's our job. We're going to teach you. and now you see your friend doing it who was sitting where you were sitting last year. One year, I went to an elementary school, and of course I vetted with the music teacher of what fifth grader I was gonna pick, but I wanted to end the concert with a fifth grader conducting. And of course you wanna pick a piece that that the band can play without anybody conducting, because that little fifth grader doesn't know what they're doing. But it was a really cool connection for that fifth grader to go up there and go, wow, I am helping this band make music. That's really cool. We used to make goodie bags for every fifth grader. You have to be careful now about, the whole peanut allergy thing and that, but you can do pencils and, Sharpies or whatever, little music themed things. And I would have my leaders, my advanced bands, decorate all of those goodie bags. And so as we left after playing a concert or whatever recruitment I was doing, we left those goodie bags for every fifth grader so that they would remember, wow, the Wood Band or the Kruger Band is really, really cool. That's a place I want to be. Look how much fellowship they have and how much fun they have together. Retention was always very important to me because I feel that every student matters. And there's several reasons that a kid might want to not stay in band. One, the most prevalent that I found was usually the kid in the beginning band program that was, at the bottom of the section all year, and they struggled and I don't want to do this anymore, I'm not any good. And, a lot of times when I would convince those kids to give it one more year, well, they're late bloomers because they all don't progress at the same rate. You can see that even when you're teaching beginning band. You have your top section that gets it and goes on, and then you have your middle section that kind of like, okay, and then you have your bottom section that a lot of times they just don't get it right away. They need more repetition. And, so I always pulled them aside. I always talked to every kid one-on-one. I wanted to find out why they didn't want to do band anymore, and then find out, okay, what did you like about band, and how can I convince them and change their mind to give it one more year? And I would say probably 90 to 95% of the time, I can convince them to give them that one more year, and then bloom, they loved it. They kept on. I remember one year I had a bassoon player who wanted to quit after 6th grade. And of course we always wanted to try and keep all of our double reeds. And his thing was, well, I just want to try something new. I don't want to do this anymore. Well, he was actually a really good player. And I'm like, okay, you're in 7th grade in the school I was at the time, you get a second elective. But I'm going to tell you, when you get to high school, they tell you you don't have a lot of choices and time, but you actually do. And after having 2 girls in high school, I know that they actually have a lot of choices. They have a lot of time to take those extracurriculars. So the assistant that I had at the time, she was his beginner teacher. We sat him down and we talked about it, and we pulled mom in. It's always real important to get the parents involved and get their perspective. And so we did convince him to stay. And years later, he reached out to me and he thanked me, and he ended up becoming a music major at Texas Tech. So, they don't know. They're in middle school, or if you're in high school, they get pulled in other directions too. But their minds are still, their brains are still developing, so they don't always know. They make decisions based on emotion, based on what their friends are doing. Well, my friend's quitting, so I want to quit. So I really strived hard to keep my retention rate. I was usually around 90%. And then I mentioned this, but parent communication is key. Because sometimes you'll have a parent go, well, they don't practice at home. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep running the instrument, or I don't da. So if you can get that conversation going one-on-one with the student, with the parent, I think that you'll have a lot of success in having a higher retention rate. So a couple of other things that I thought about as we were doing this, and this is something I learned before I ever began teaching. I learned it from Keith Bearden when I went to Texas Tech. And a couple of things that you need to do as a new teacher is become friends with your custodians. They're a huge help to you. Become friends with your counselor's data processor, the one who puts the kids in the right class. The year I took over as head director at Kruger, it was a mess when I came in. I didn't get hired till late July after Texas Band Convention. And the classes were all a huge mess. And this counselor was like, okay, here's this first year head director. It was only my 4th year teaching. Let's sit down and work on it. And thankfully she was willing to do that with me. So the next week I sent her a cookie bouquet. She helped me so much the rest of the time that I was teaching at that school. Like that meant that she's like, wow, I helped this person, and she really is thanking me. So make sure you have those connections. Something else to think about is to pick your battles. We all know that band is really, really important to us, but it's not necessarily the most important thing on your campus. And it's definitely not the most important thing in your administration's mind. So if something's really important to you, like scheduling or whatever the case may be, fight that battle, but don't try and fight every battle, because you're not going to win every battle. And then you just become the bad guy on campus. And you need as much support from everyone. Another person to make friends with, your coaches. Make friends with your coaches. I tried to pick a battle one time and I learned early on, nope. I need that person on my side. So pick your battles. You're not going to win every fight. And then one year when I was teaching at Wood Middle School, we had a new principal that year, and she came up to me and she said, Holly, I want your advanced band to play for the teachers on the first day of in-service. I want you to do a little concert. I haven't seen my kids all summer. They probably haven't practiced all summer. Okay, so I came up with a couple of really fun but super easy pieces, and the kids really dug it. And then we had a library open up across the street, and they reached out, hey, we want you to perform for the library. So I added some more pieces, and then we played a Spurs game, and I added some more pieces. So by the end of the year, the kids had a binder, and of course it progressed from easier to harder, but they had a binder of about 30 pieces. And so at the end of the year, when we're closing everything out, what do? You're not supposed to show movies, and they can't have books and paper. So I said, okay, get your binder out. We're gonna play every song. And they loved it. They loved it. Oh my gosh, I remember this song. And so the next year, the 7th graders that were then 8th graders wanted to create the same type of book. So it's kind of going along the traditions that you were talking about of having the 1812 or the Beatle or John Williams, whatever. But they had their little playbook. It was, they really dug it. So you want to add anything else to that?
No, it's great stuff. I mean, I think the relationships you make with your coaches and your counselors and your custodians are really important, because you'll find that in some cases that the principals move on and they go on to do something else, so they become high school principals. But you'll find that the other people that were on this list are going to still be there. You're going to find your custodians are going to be there probably the longest.
Yep.
And so it is really important to have that good relationship with them. And so I think that's all great stuff. I think one of the key words that we've mentioned a couple times is longevity. And, how do you get into this job and do it for a long time? Some teachers change schools and it keeps them going. The newness, the different environment, whatever words you want to think of, keeps them going. And some teachers change schools every 5 or 6 years. They reinvent themselves, if you will. Some teachers go from middle school to high school, and that gives them a charge. Sometimes they go from high school to middle school, to end the rat race of high school marching band and everything else. And some, although not common, stay in one school for most of their careers. So, as I said, I've been teaching for 32 years, and 25 of those 32 have been at the same school, Driscoll Middle School. And I guess one reason I've been there so long is I hate change. I'm a creature of habit, and I just would rather not change anything. Number 2, I love my school and I love my community. And probably another reason why I stayed is I really enjoyed the challenge of seeing my school go from a tier 1, the newest middle school, to mostly disadvantaged school now, as far as socioeconomically speaking. We're still on the far end, northern end of the district, but we've just gotten smaller and smaller and aging out, neighborhoods around us. And so with all that happening, it's been a real challenge to, maintain a certain level of success, maintain a program. For instance, since 2012, my school's population has dropped by 30%. So, maybe just a little over 1,100 or so, and now we're down to 750. But the numbers for the band have stayed the same the whole time. So we went through a big change. We had about 360 kids in the band program, and 320, and we dropped to 160 when a new school opened, and we built it back up to 200 with those retention things that Holly talked about. But we did get back up to 200, and we've kind of been there since. But in that same time frame, as the school population has shrunk, we're still maintaining our numbers, and I think that says a lot about developing a program that the kids want to be in, and so when it comes to longevity, you will find yourself either wanting to stay in one place because it becomes your home away from home, like I call it. Or you'll find yourself wanting to go to different places. You may also find yourself having the opportunity to open a new school, which is another reason that some directors leave the places that they're at. As far as longevity and success is concerned, I think some of the key components of that goes back to what we mentioned earlier, is creating traditions. But number one, it's really important that you have a good partner to work with at work. And I have been blessed. I've had great assistant directors just about my whole time I've been there at Driscoll. And it helped to have her around too, But we helped each other when we were both teaching quite a bit, and we competed against each other, and that was kind of fun.
Always fun.
But the Driscolls had quite a bit of success over the years, and maintaining that kind of success, even though the school is changing, is a challenge. But I think you just have to be willing to adapt to change, and you have to have a willingness to continue to learn no matter how many years you've been teaching. I'm always trying to be a lifelong learner, and you have to be in this business. And one way to keep things fresh for yourself is to continue to learn. And when you get to about your 11th, 15th year, you're like, well, I know it all. Well, nobody ever does. And implementing new ideas, even though I don't like change and I'm a man of routine, I do try things. I have over the years, where I've taken what I've done and I change it. And you have to do some of that, not only for yourself but for the kids, because then you just get on automatic pilot. You're not really teaching; you're just throwing out information. So you have to adapt that information and your concept to make it fit to the students that are in front of you. So
and kids are changing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can't teach 15 years the same way because kids aren't the same way they were 15 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
And you've done a very good job of that.
That's a great point. That there is that, you have to have that level of adapting and understanding the kids are changing. And, there was years where we could, do a certain level of music, and that's when kids practiced more and they didn't have phones. And now, you don't necessarily have the ability to do that for a variety of reasons, but mostly because they have other things to do, and they get pretty busy with their social media lives. So back to longevity and success. The most important thing is the beginning band class. The most important teaching you ever do is your beginning band teaching. If you just commit to that, then your bands will be successful. I mean, I'm talking about top band and non-varsity band and even sub non-varsity. It's really a key component And it's a sacrifice because those kids need a lot of attention. And they're at that age where they still want to hug you and things like that. Oh, get away! But it's a beautiful thing. The first sound they make is the best sound in the world. It's a train sound, crashing. But it's something that I love because I get to mold that sound, and I get to make it something beautiful and something that they themselves transform when they hear it getting better and better and better.
And we talked about the diversity of that beginner class, but something that Richard taught me long ago when we were first dating and early married is that don't just teach to the top of your beginners. Mm-hmm. You need to teach all the way down to the bottom, especially if you're an assistant director, because those top kids are more than likely going to go into that top band. And if you want your band to be good, you need the middle to lower to have a good foundation and fundamental, because they're going to be in that second or third band.
That's a great point.
Well, you taught me that.
Yeah, because I was an assistant band director for 10 years before I took over. And I really did make it a point to teach those kids as well as I could, because I knew they were going to be in my band, so they had the fundamentals. But yeah, the beginning band teaching is critical. If you do your best job of beginning band teaching, then not only is it going to be good for your band if you have head band director, but it's going to be good for your assistant director to have good kids that have the fundamentals down, and that way they're not just reteaching every day because they are trying to catch up. And that's the nature of it. Your second band kids are the ones that don't practice quite as much, but still, the more you can do to get those good fundamentals established, the better off those bands will be. I think another element to success and longevity is creating a culture that thrives on achieving success year after year. Some people call it a tradition of excellence. And it's gotten to the point where we would have had our 28th, I guess, 28th UIL, but we didn't get to go to UIL this year. But so we were going for 28, and year after year, when we get done with the UIL, going for your number 26 in a row sweepstakes and all that kind of stuff, the kids, they feel the pressure. They don't want to be the band that doesn't do it. But it keeps you going if you can keep a good balance, because you can't just be living for band
or UIL.
Right, or UIL, exactly. I mean, if you want to have a long teaching career, be sure that you balance your life with other hobbies. Every student teacher I've had over the years and every assistant director I've had with me made it a point that I don't live and breathe band. I never really have. I mean, there might have been a point early on in my career where I was pretty driven. I still am driven, but I find that giving them that advice to make sure that they have a balance, to me, it ensures that you'll last longer. And we want good teachers, to last a long time, because when you leave the profession, that means it has to be filled in with somebody that doesn't have as much experience and knowledge and wisdom. And so, the longer we can keep our teachers there, the more they can mentor, the more we can pass this wonderful thing off to other people. But you have to find that balance, and don't live and breathe band, and don't expect your kids to live and breathe band. They have to have that balance too, and it's really, really vitally important to keep a balance for them, so that they're not being forced to make a decision. Well, I can't be in band and be in athletics, or I can't be in band and be in choir. We share kids as much as possible, and especially in middle school, where they do have a little more flexibility to be able to do things, a variety of things. But it's really important that you teach by example. So if you have kids and you're really, really intense all the time and you can't ease off, then they're just going to be little intense kids and going to be nervous, and it's not going to be a good balance. You have to have a balance for yourself and your kids and your program. And I think that definitely leads to longevity. And what we've learned, of course, as a band director couple, is that it's really, really important that you don't go home and you take your work home with you.
Well, yeah, and I know you're probably wondering why they asked me to be on this session, because I'm not teaching band anymore, even though I'm still like I said, I do master classes, and I help with the Johnson All-Staters as they go on to area, prepare for that last audition. But I did teach 16 years, and the first few before kids, we were at school from 6 to 6. And then after I had my oldest, I tried to bring work home. Like, I can do it at home while I have the baby. And we would talk shop all the time, and it just was draining. I finally learned, okay, and this is probably a whole other session, but I can be a good mom, and I can be a working mom and be a good band director, but I just have to find that balance. So we made an agreement that, work stays at work and family time is sacred, and we try not to talk about work too much at home. Of course, you still want to vent out the day, but you also need to find the positives when you're talking. So we did try and find that balance, and even though I left the profession, I'm still in schools all day long. I'm still in band halls and choir rooms, and we have to still, okay, we're not going to talk shop right now. We're gonna find something else to talk about as a family. Super important.
Yeah. So, longevity and doing something that you love for a long time, some of it is just a matter of, being at the right place at the right time. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, when I got my first job, and then the right place at the right time when I got the job at Driscoll. And for some people, you might have to, jump a couple of schools to find that right place, right time, perfect school kind of situation. It doesn't happen as often anymore, but it's I think that the key thing for me is I still enjoy what I'm doing. The kids keep me young. They say funny things, and I just
So do you.
Yeah, and I'm just like them. I need structure. This whole COVID thing is driving me crazy. I need to go back to work. I need a schedule. But so I'm just like them, but just an older version. But but they make me so happy, and teaching music and the process of teaching music and molding young lives, and not just teaching music lessons, but teaching life lessons, and having those kids come back to you as adults, and they're showing you their kids' pictures, or they're doing something with their lives that you catch up on Facebook with, and it's so satisfying. And if you're lucky enough to do it for a long time, you will have those kids come back to you as adults, and they'll say, they'll tell you thank you over and over again, and it'll be surprised. It's not going to be necessarily the ones that you think are going to come back. Sometimes it's the one that, wow, I had no idea I had any impact on you. You never listened to me, but they are.
Yes.
And they may not be listening to your music lessons, but they could very well be listening to your life lessons that you're teaching kids. And so, what's the payoff in this gig? It's not money, but the payoff is that you know that you've had an influence on a young person's life, and they're going to grow up and they're going to be good people, and they're going to be good parents and do well in their jobs, whatever it is, because you instill that in them. The ability to work as a team, the ability to work at something until you get it right. These lessons that we get out of music, stretch well beyond just the staff and the clef sign and eighth notes, and it goes to a whole nother level when they become adults, and they don't forget it.
No, they don't.
So.
And funny thing, 12 years of fundraising, I also have those kids come to me as adults, and they remember me as their fundraising lady.
Yeah, that's right.
Because, yeah.
Yep. So we wish you all the luck in the world. I hope that some of these little words of wisdom from an old band director like me.
And his younger wife.
Yes, by 8 years. I hope it helps a little bit. I hope that you can remember, some key points that Holly made for sure that you can implement in your programs. And then, just the biggest takeaway should be that you keep yourself balanced. If you want to do this a long time, keep a good balance, a healthy balance. I think a lot of times teachers, teaching kids is draining. It really is. And more often than not, teachers neglect themselves because we're so committed to the job, and we don't go to the doctor like we should. We don't, watch our diet like we should, because we just, are just doing it for the kids, and we get so committed to that we neglect ourselves. And so it's super vitally important that you find that balance, and you take care of yourself, and
find that thing that you like to recharge. For him, it's golf. For me, it's working out or reading or binge watching a show. Find something to be able to just let go of that day.
Yeah, and I think more nowadays young teachers have more options than we had when we were there at that point. But anyway, I hope this helps, and I wish you all the luck, and
Hang in there with COVID.
hang in there with COVID. Stay safe. Wear a mask. All that kind of stuff.
Wash your hands. Bye.
All right. Bye.